Welcome to the Hindu Daily. Our deep dive today covers a truly massive scope. We're going from the fractured reality of global climate negotiations all the way into the subatomic world of quantum physics.
And that's before we even get to high-stakes elections, new talent wars, and, the fundamental question of who controls knowledge in the age of AI.
We're distilling 10 vital stories that are really shaping our world this week. So where should we start?
I think we have to start with the pressure is highest. South Asia's demands for real climate action ahead of COP30 in Brazil.
Okay.
The global processes, they feel weakened. Especially after major nations like the U.S. have really tested the system's
But
credibility.
you're saying South Asia is stepping up.
They're stepping up as a necessary leader, and it's driven purely by existential threats.
So this leadership role isn't coming from, say, idealism, but from sheer necessity.
Exactly.
So what are the core priorities then? What are countries like Nepal, Bhutan, and Bangladesh actually carrying to COP30?
The overarching concern, and this is really the biggest takeaway, is the massive gap between climate rhetoric and climate delivery.
Right, the implementation gap.
They're calling it the Achilles heel of global governance. And we have to look at the data here.
Okay.
The Center for Energy, Environment, and Water, or CEW, found that since 2015, out of 203 assessed climate initiatives, only about 5% actually achieved their stated goals.
5%, that's a near total failure rate.
It is, and that failure demands a much stronger focus on regional cooperation. South Asia is looking to leverage forums like the G20 and BRICS and specific initiatives.
Like India's Coalition for Disaster Resilient Infrastructure.
Exactly that. To share knowledge and build verification mechanisms, it's pragmatic. The thinking is if global bodies won't deliver, then regional groups have to.
And given the sheer number of floods, cyclones, and heat waves hitting the region, I have to imagine the second priority is adaptation, moving beyond just, talking about cutting emissions.
Adaptation must now stand on an equal footing with mitigation. The numbers are frightening. The Asian Development Bank predicts that by 2100, South Asia could face 200 days per year over 35 degrees Celsius.
200 days.
And the local impacts are so diverse. You've got glacial lake floods in Nepal, coastal erosion in the Maldives, India's paralyzing heat waves.
So what's the ask?
The priority is establishing simple, agreed-upon indicators for the global goal on adaptation. Indicators that measure progress without, overwhelming capacity-limited nations with these super complex reporting requirements.
Which brings us to the third and fourth priorities. This has to be the elephant in the room. Finance.
It is. Broken promises and delayed commitments from developed countries have just severely undermined trust.
The trust deficit must be huge.
It's acute. South Asian negotiators are demanding that climate finance be predictable, adequate, and non-debt inducing.
Meaning grants, not loans.
Grants, or highly concessional financing, must be the priority. We need clarity on how global pledges actually translate into local action.
Yeah.
And this is where the Bifurcation roadmap comes in.
Right, the roadmap to mobilize $1.3 trillion.
Yes, and as part of that, South Asia is demanding a tripling of adaptation finance, including a specific, dedicated regional allocation. Maybe a South Asian resilience finance facility to mobilize capital more efficiently.
It sounds like this transition requires a lot more than just state mandates. Who else needs to be at the table for this to work?
And that's the final priority. The climate transition cannot be solely left to governments. It's just too big.
So non-state actors.
The private sector, the youth, civil society, they have to become crucial engines of scale. They unlock private finance, they mobilize urgency, and they create accountability. It's about building a verifiable cycle of action that holds everyone to account.
Speaking of strong regional relationships and focused leadership, let's pivot from those high-level global climate talks to a very specific bilateral friendship, India and Bhutan.
A great transition.
This week marks a significant milestone, the 70th birthday of the former king Jigme Singye Wangchuck, or K4, who's revered as the Bodhisattva king for his vision in modernizing Bhutan.
And this celebration is also a moment for some very high-level diplomacy. It's reinforced by the presence of Prime Minister Modi, which really underscores the importance of India's neighborhood-first policy.
Bhutan was his very first foreign visit back in 2014, wasn't it?
It was. K4's legacy is really defined by his recognition that Bhutan's security and sovereignty required deep cooperation with India. He was very clear-eyed about potential threats originating from the north.
And that cooperation was foundational. Literally. It started with India's Border Roads Organization laying the initial road network in Bhutan.
Precisely. And the single most significant long-term pillar of this relationship has been hydropower diplomacy. K4 had the foresight to see Bhutan's rivers as a sustainable, steady stream of revenue.
Primarily by generating and supplying electricity to India. The scale of this cooperation is massive. During the recent visit, we saw the formal inauguration of a key project.
That's right. The 1,020-megawatt Purnatangchu, the second hydroelectric project, was formally inaugurated. But what's crucial here is that the financing model for these huge infrastructure projects is evolving.
How so?
Historically, they were government cooperative ventures. Now, the future strategy is shifting towards private capital. You have Indian firms like Tata Power and Adani Power collaborating directly with Bhutanese companies.
So a new phase in resource sharing and development.
A completely new phase. And it's truly remarkable that K4's influence remains so strong. The current king, K5, still consults his father on critical matters of national security.
And India also remembers his personal leadership during Operation All Clear back in 2003.
A decisive moment, successfully evicting Indian insurgent groups that had taken refuge in Bhutanese jungles. It cemented that trust.
Let's shift our focus now to some high-stakes geopolitics, the upcoming Iraqi parliamentary election on November 11th. While the global media might be obsessed with domestic events elsewhere, the outcome in Baghdad carries, well, immense regional and international significance.
The complexity of the Iraqi political landscape is just striking. You have a massive field, 7,744 candidates, competing for only 329 seats.
That's an incredible ratio.
It is. And we see strong youth representation with nearly 40% of candidates under 40 and a lot of women leveraging reserve seats. But, and it's a big but, this democratic framework is built on institutionalized corruption.
Can you elaborate on that, the structural flaws that breed this corruption?
It's centered around what's often called sectarian spoil sharing. Thousands of high-ranking, lucrative state positions are reserved for the victorious sectarian coalition, the Shia, Sunni, and Kurdish groups.
Through a deeply entrenched system.
A system called Muhasa. And this just breeds popular apathy. Only 21 million out of 30 million eligible voters are even registered.
And the expected turnout is low.
The expectation is for a turnout under 40%.
And adding to all this turmoil, you have numerous armed militias, the lurking threat of terrorism from groups like IS and Al-Qaeda, and the powerful influence of Iranian patronage.
Exactly. We also have the populist Shia leader, Muqtada al-Sadr, continuing his boycott, which, essentially leaves the electoral field wide open to the ruling Shia coordination framework.
And this fractured internal landscape has immense geopolitical stakes.
Huge stakes, given Iraq's role in the global energy market.
Iraq is OPEC's second largest producer, pumping about 4.5 million barrels per day. The political outcome here directly impacts global energy prices and security.
Absolutely. Historically, Iraq has been an arena for U.S.-Iran animosity, but the country is actively pushing for unencumbered sovereignty. They've already negotiated the withdrawal of the U.S.-led multinational force by September 2026.
So a strong nationalist government, if one emerges, could start to change things.
It could begin the very delicate process of disarming the heavily armed militias.
So how crucial is this stability for India?
The trade link is vital. Total bilateral trade reached $33.35 billion recently, but it's enormously unbalanced.
A 9-to-1 ratio favoring Iraq, I assume.
Yes, due to our crude dependence. And given that Russian oil supplies are receding, Iraq is widely anticipated to return as India's largest crude supplier.
Which means we need to be engaged.
It means India must prioritize high-level diplomatic re-engagement once the electoral process concludes, especially because a power vacuum is emerging in the northern Gulf region.
Now let's make a dramatic pivot. From the geopolitics of oil to the foundational physics that might power the next generation of devices.
It's a big pivot.
For well over a century, magnetism was a simple choice. You had ferromagnetism, which sticks to your fridge, and anti-ferromagnetism, where the internal moments cancel out. But sources are confirming the discovery of a third distinct magnetic order, Altermagnetism.
This is huge for fundamental science. It truly is.
So what is it?
Altermagnetism fundamentally challenges our long-held dichotomy. The core definition is this paradoxical duality. Externally, the material behaves exactly like an antiferromagnet. Neighboring spins are antiparallel, they cancel each other out, and the result is zero net external magnetic field.
And that's the crucial part for device designers, right? No external magnetic field means no interference.
That's the holy grail. But if the external behavior is the same as an antiferromagnet, Where is the alter part? What makes it a distinct third order?
That was my next question.
The secret is hidden inside the crystal structure and its symmetry. In conventional antiferromagnets, the opposing spins are eluded by simple translation. You just, shift the lattice one unit over.
That's slow enough.
In an altermagnet, the opposing magnetic spins are connected by much more complex symmetry operations. Things like a rotation or a mirror flip within the crystal pattern.
And it's this structural twist that creates unique internal electronic properties.
That is the crux of it.
Yeah.
Because of this specific symmetry, when we look at the material's electronic band structure, you can imagine these as the energy levels where electrons live. Those bands split.
Split how?
Think of an energy highway dividing into two lanes. One lane strictly for upspin electrons, the other for downspin electrons, and they reside at slightly different energies.
And this spin splitting is what allows altermagnets to carry a spin-polarized current.
Correct. They can guide the electron spin direction, a feature previously only seen in ferromagnets, all while maintaining that crucial zero-net magnetization. It has the best of both worlds.
And the evidence for this is robust, right? Researchers use a technique, angle-resolved photoemission spectroscopy, or air ballers.
Yes, on a material called manganese telluride to confirm this band splitting.
So what do these capabilities mean for technology? I mean, particularly for spintronics.
Spintronics is the primary beneficiary. The major headache with using ferromagnets in electronics is stray magnetic fields. You just can't pack them too closely without interference.
And altermagnets solve this completely?
They do, because they have zero stray fields. This allows for dramatically smaller, denser, and more stable devices.
And beyond just size, the speed potential sounds transformative.
Potentially, yes. The theoretical switching speed of these materials is governed by fundamental interactions that operate incredibly fast. We could be looking at speeds in the terahertz range.
Terahertz, that's up to 1,000 times faster than the gigahertz speeds in today's components.
Exactly. And on top of that, some altermagnets exhibit what's called the anomalous Hall effect, which conventional antiferromagnets lack.
And that gives you a sideways voltage.
A sideways voltage that provides a simple electrical signal to read the material's magnetic state, which makes device integration much, much more straightforward.
So you've got electrical readability, zero external fields, and extreme speed. This really does sound revolutionary.
It's the beginning of a new chapter. The main challenge right now is practical. It's synthesis. Researchers are still struggling to synthesize high-quality single-domain materials.
They need to control the material growth perfectly.
Perfectly, to eliminate these tiny interfering magnetic regions that currently form during production. Once they crack that, things will move very fast.
Moving back to domestic policy in India, the government has constituted the 8th Central Pay Commission, or CPC.
Headed by retired Justice Ranjana Prakash Desai.
Its job is to review salaries and service conditions for central government employees.
And the terms of reference, the TOR, for this commission are highly critical, largely because they have to operate under some severe fiscal constraints.
What kind of constraints?
The commission is mandated to consider the country's economic conditions, the need for fiscal prudence, and most importantly, the massive estimated unfunded cost of non-contributory pension schemes.
That's a huge number, isn't it?
It's projected to cost 2.76 lakh crore in 2025-26 alone, a huge fiscal burden.
The commission is also tasked with comparing public sector pay with the private sector, which, as I understand it, exposes an interesting paradox about competitiveness.
It does. At the entry level, public sector salaries are often significantly higher than their private counterparts. But that situation flips dramatically for higher posts and specialist roles.
So we attract entry-level talent, but struggle to retain specialists.
Precisely. While government service offers immense job security and non-monetary perks, external competitiveness seriously lags for top specialist talent. The commission really has to revisit the compression ratio.
The ratio between the lowest and highest paid employees.
Right, which was set at 1 to 12.5 in the 7th CPC. They need to see if that's still appropriate to attract and retain the most highly skilled individuals at the top end.
Looking at those TR, are there any factors that are conspicuously missing, things that might be vital for modernizing the government workforce?
Yes, I think so. The focus appears heavily financial. Intangibles related to workforce health and modernization.
Like training, flexible working.
Things like learning and development, comprehensive training frameworks, and work environment factors like flexible working policies, they aren't explicitly listed in the TR.
That seems like an oversight.
And Considering the massive financial mandate, there's also a compelling argument to broaden the Commission's membership beyond the traditional mix, to include dedicated finance and human resource professionals.
Staying in this realm of knowledge, let's look at the work of Nobel laureate Joel Mokyr. He offers a powerful historical lens, arguing that sustained economic growth is fundamentally dependent on the growth and diffusion of knowledge and ideas.
Mokyr's model is so useful here. He distinguishes between two types of knowledge: propositional knowledge.
Which is the science, the why things work.
Exactly. And prescriptive knowledge, which is the practical know-how, the techniques, the application, or the how-to. Both have to grow, but the ultimate condition for economic acceleration is access.
Access is the key.
The social norms must promote the sharing and free flow of both types of knowledge.
So, using this framework, how does the historical social structure of India, specifically the caste system, fit into Mokyr's analysis of growth?
The caste system historically acted as a massive barrier. It restricted access to both propositional and prescriptive knowledge to an elite minority.
Which actively hampered innovation and slowed economic growth for centuries.
For centuries. Mokyr's lesson is crystal clear. If critical knowledge exists but is institutionally inaccessible to the majority, it severely limits the potential for societal innovation.
So democratizing high-quality education is a prerequisite for faster inclusive growth.
It's an absolute prerequisite.
That addresses the historical challenge. But what about the modern threat posed by automation and artificial intelligence?
Automation presents a new and a paradoxical barrier to knowledge sharing. If AI and machines perform most routine, hands-on tasks, leading to what's called job polarization, then fewer individuals gain the practical experience necessary for acquiring prescriptive knowledge.
So you lose the how-to.
You lose the transmission of techniques that relies on training, mentorship, and repeated practice. So if education restricts propositional knowledge, and automation restricts the opportunity to acquire prescriptive knowledge through work, overall economy-wide innovation will suffer.
Despite the immediate productivity gains from automation.
That's the paradox.
Following that thread of knowledge control, let's explore how state-of-the-art AI breakthroughs are increasingly being privatized. It's highlighted by the fact that recent Nobel laureates in areas like protein folding were working at corporate labs like Google DeepMind.
This concentration is entirely structural. To train state-of-the-art models today, you need vast amounts of fixed capital. We're talking about massive, multi-million-dollar compute clusters like Google's TPUs or Microsoft's Azure supercomputers.
So public money might support the initial brilliant ideas.
But the sheer capacity to operationalize and validate that knowledge is now controlled by a handful of enormous firms.
One of the sources referred to this concentration as the enclosure.
It's a very apt term. The path from a theoretical public insight to a fully working, deployed system is now bounded by infrastructure and contractual agreements controlled by these few firms. It makes replication even of prize-winning work extremely difficult and expensive for academic institutions.
So how do we counter this?
Policy has to introduce concrete public obligations that are tied directly to public grants and procurement.
What would those concrete public obligations look like?
The deliverables must include usable artifacts for the public domain, training code, evaluation suites, and open licensed weights for the models themselves.
And what about compute power?
Well, if compute is the new bottleneck for scientific advancement, it should be treated as a public utility. We need national or regional compute commons designed to allocate resources to academic groups at free or subsidized cost.
But with a condition.
Contingent on those groups providing open deliverables.
That really reframes the conversation effectively. We should move past the simple industry versus academia argument.
Exactly. That framing misses the point entirely. The relevant questions are: who controls the underlying infrastructure, who can reproduce the scientific results, and ultimately, who benefits most from the deployment of these immensely powerful AI models?
The policy needs to reunite those layers.
The artifacts, the data sets, and the compute capacity, all to ensure that public input results in maximum public return.
Shifting now to macroeconomics, the current global picture, especially in the U.S., is exceptionally difficult to read. It's clouded by the massive AI investment dash, creating what some analysts are calling economic bifurcation.
Beth Hammack of the Cleveland Fed outlined this very clearly. You have high earners and asset holders who are benefiting immensely from AI-related stock surges. That fuels resilient consumption and corporate profit.
But on the other side,
Meanwhile, a large segment of the population is struggling with persistent inflation, a high cost of living, and rising layoffs, some of which are explicitly tied to AI-driven corporate restructuring,
A contradictory environment.
which makes guiding monetary policy incredibly challenging.
And the statistics themselves seem to be contradictory, contributing to what's being called statistical fog. We see high GDP growth around 4% annualized, yet economic uncertainty and rising layoffs.
This is the mismeasurement dilemma inherent in the intangible economy. Morgan Stanley highlights that much of the investment spending is on intermediate goods, like chips and servers, which aren't always reflected smoothly in GDP.
Or they're distorted by volatility like tariff avoidance.
Right. And crucially, the IIF report emphasizes that the U.S. economy is becoming more intangible. Our national accounts are poorly equipped to measure the true value of software, data, and intellectual property.
So what's their conclusion?
Their conclusion is that official statistics simultaneously overstate AI's immediate impact on GDP growth and understate its broader long-term economic transformation.
Which means policy calibration and forecasting are fundamentally complicated by flawed data.
Precisely. And there's a distinct risk here. If the benefits and adoption of AI remain concentrated among just a few hyperscalers, overall productivity and economic growth could become dangerously vulnerable once this current investment cycle in chips and servers peaks.
Let's circle back to climate action, specifically COP30, which begins this week in Belém, with the U.S. essentially absent from meaningful leadership.
And Europe's resolve faltering.
Right, the EU allowing the use of foreign carbon credits to reduce their real emissions, cut to about 85%. It seems a global leadership vacuum has emerged.
And this void is being filled by the rising leadership of the Global South, especially the BRICS group. They are setting the tone for fairer climate finance and have backed the ambitious Baku to Belém roadmap.
The $1.3 trillion plan.
Aimed at significantly boosting climate funding. Yes.
And we're seeing tangible, actionable steps coming from this group, not just, more pledges.
Correct. Brazil, as the host of COP, unveiled the Tropical Forests Forever Fund, or TFFF, as part of that roadmap. It's an innovative mechanism designed to treat forest preservation as a financial asset. It's aiming for a $10 billion goal and has already secured $5.5 billion in initial pledges, notably from Norway, Brazil, and Indonesia.
So it's Global South countries turning talk into financed action.
That's it. President Lula da Silva has called COP30 the COP of Truth, aiming to restore the balance between economic growth and environmental sustainability, a core challenge for all developing economies.
And that's the defining narrative now.
With the developed world showing signs of compromise or withdrawal, BRICS is powerfully positioned to shape a new, unified global climate finance agenda and translate that vision into a coordinated action plan.
Finally, let's turn to foreign affairs and China's aggressive strategy in the global competition for high-tech talent. The launch of its new K-visa program.
This is a significant move. It's clearly designed to rival the U.S. H-1B system.
And the timing is strategic.
Very strategic. The K-visa targets science and technology workers and, critically, does not require an applicant to have a job offer before applying.
That's a huge difference.
It is. They are capitalizing directly on the uncertainties, long processing times, and extremely high fees, sometimes up to $100,000 for new applicants of the U.S. H-1B program.
But China has a significant contradiction domestically, doesn't it? They're trying to reverse a brain drain and fill a skills gap, yet youth unemployment is stubbornly high.
Nearly 18% for non-students aged 16 to 24. That contradiction creates significant friction. Local Chinese engineers fear the K-visa could threaten their job opportunities, even as the government recognizes it must attract global expertise.
It's a tricky balancing act.
It is, between managing an influx of foreign talent and addressing a large pool of unemployed local graduates.
Even with this attractive K-visa offering, what are the major hurdles that foreign professionals still face when considering a move to China?
The language barrier remains substantial. Secondly, the Great Firewall. China's strict internet censorship is a major drawback for professionals accustomed to global, unrestricted access to information.
And geopolitics must play a role.
Geopolitical tensions create deep skepticism. For example, one potential applicant, Nikhil Swaminathan, noted he would consider the move if not for the difficult relationship between India and China.
So what are the numbers like?
In sheer scale, China, despite its 1.4 billion people, had only about 711,000 foreign workers as of 2023. It confirms that the U.S. still holds the major advantage in global research collaboration and the widespread use of English.
Thank you for listening. If you want to provide suggestions, please contact on the Twitter handle given in the episode description. As always, we are eager to hear what our listeners want to be informed about. We wish you a great day.